So a couple days, or this is just yesterday as of recording this. This is a move that Flames fans have been waiting for a long time. We've been talking about this since the trade deadline, and from before even that. Jacob Markstrom has been traded to the team that we all expected him to be traded to, the New Jersey Devils. Full details of the trade. So New Jersey just gets Markstrom in return. Maybe not necessarily what Flames fans were fully hoping for. Still not a bad return. They get defenseman Kevin Ball, first round pick in 2025, so next year. And they also will retain about a little bit more than 30% of Markstrom's salary. So I won't give it any more intro than that. We already pretty much know the context because if you've been following this podcast, because we've talked about it like seven separate times in
I
the
think
last
how long
like
has
six
it
months
how
or whatever.
long has it been rumored at this point that he'd be going to New Jersey? Is it 6 months?
Oh, I
Because it's
remember. It has to be.
we had a Nond on
I
the
feel.
first
I
time,
feel
and
like
that
about
must have
6 months.
that would have been January. So yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's probably it's either 6 months exactly or really close to it because it was a little bit before the trade deadline that all this started getting all over the place. And I mean, I think you hit on something right off the jump. It is a little underwhelming considering how long we've been waiting. You think that a trade like this would have been able to happen, I guess. Like I don't understand what the wait was in a sense. Like you're
Yeah.
all the Devils needed to trade at this point to get him was a 2025 first and Kevin Ball, which was two things that they already had at that point. So it's a little interesting, I guess, in that sense, but it's by no means a bad trade. I think one of the stats that I saw reading
No.
on Twitter about it was exactly like a comparison based on Jacob Markstrom's age, comparing all of the trades of other goalies. I think is he 34 or 35, whatever age he is, one of the two. Like comparing goalies of that age and what they normally get when being traded away. I think he might be one of, if not the only goalie ever to pull a first round pick at that age. Which I think,
Wow.
yeah, which should say to a certain point how good of a job Craig Conroy actually did, despite a lot of people not being very happy about it. But honestly, I'm not too mad. I was scared we weren't going to get a first round pick at all because of how inconsistent Markstrom
Mm.
had been at times, and considering the his pattern was kind of really good season, bad season, really good season, bad season, and he just had a really good season. Ergo, he's about to have a very bad season. So I thought maybe that might bring down his how much he's worth, but clearly it did, and the Flames are still going to get a first round pick out of it. And something I might add on as well, because I did see this being talked about, is let's if the Devils end up struggling this next season and that pick ends up being top 10, the Flames end up getting their 2026 first unprotected. So no matter what, the Flames
Yeah.
are getting a first round pick. And I think that's the important thing. And I don't know, at least to me, I'll throw it back over to you because I don't think you've properly given your opinion on it yet. But I like it a lot. You got rid of a lot of cap with getting Markstrom off the roster. Dustin Wolf's going to get the chance to take that net for himself now. There's not really much standing in his way. And Kevin Ball's a fine, fine top three defenseman. Like he'll slide in decently. He's 6'6", so you know he's the Flames type, I guess. But other than that, I'm not too mad about it. It's a decent package. It's not too good, not too bad.
Yeah. And I think I would agree with that. I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head right there with everything you just said. I think the biggest thing for me is just it kind of hammers home the disappointment that this couldn't have gotten done at the trade deadline. Because I look at this deal and I think I bet if there was a little bit more urgency, if the Devils were still pushing for the playoffs, then maybe you get a little bit more. Because I look at this and compare this to what I think is Conroy's best deal that he's made so far with the Lindholm deal, and it really just pales in comparison. Because I do think in terms of value to a team, I'm sure Lindholm's quite a decent chunk younger, so that probably helps. But with Lindholm, not only do you get the first round pick, you get like a very good prospect, and then you also get Kuzmenko versus in this deal where you get kind of a middle of the road defenseman and the first round pick that is again like you said top 10 protected. Um, I think that it's I think that it is still a good deal. I'm glad that they got a first round pick for it because I do think, like a lot of articles have pointed out, the Flames had pretty much no leverage in this situation at all, with Markstrom having a no move clause, with everybody basically knowing that he was going to be leaving. Um, they really didn't have, like, they bungled the situation at the trade deadline with him so bad that there was no way he was coming back for this season. So their leverage was all pretty much gone. So considering that, I think they were good to get a first round pick for him. But yeah, no, I think the whole trade, just from both the perspective of could have gotten more, and also I think it hampered his trade value now. I just wish they had gotten it done at the trade deadline when they were very clearly trying to do it in the first place.
Yeah. No, I do agree with you to a sense. I think another reason that a lot of Flames fans are really disappointed about is the rumors that we might be getting the 10th pick. I think the fact that
Yeah.
as great as it is that we got a first round pick, I think a lot of people really wanted that pick because of what it could have meant for this franchise. I mean, there's enough content out there about how deep this draft is, just almost pretty much through the top 15. It's pretty insane with the amount of prospects that are in there. So if we could have gotten what would have been a third first round pick in this draft, that would have been awesome. I think, and especially considering what could have been there, right? Because we would have had 9 and 10 back to back. If you still somehow get a Ginla at that spot, awesome. If you end up choosing to trade up, which is another possibility, and get a Ginla, or you get even somebody else if you can get even further than that, awesome. Like, there's so much. I think the potential of it really, really hurts. But I think what we're quickly kind of learning after this entire thing is I don't think the Flames were ever, going to get Jesus, that number 10 pick. I think that was always kind of a pipe dream a little bit, is the term that I've seen used a little all around. And it sucks. It sucks a lot. I'd like to see if the Flames still try and trade up despite what they ended up getting from Markstrom. I think that's going to be interesting to see in the next little bit here, but who knows? I think at the end of the day, it just shows what the youth movement is going to look like with the Flames. I think this is really the start of hopefully a rebuild. So a lot of people have been saying the word retool, which is scary, which would mean that we're going to trade away all these picks. But I'm a big fan of all that we've stacked.
I seriously doubt that. I think with what Conroy is doing, I saw a big a great Instagram page that I know you know of, is the In the Dome Instagram page.
Yep.
For the Flames, because they have a lot of cool stats that they post up on there, and well, a lot of the, I don't necessarily agree with everything they put up on there, but one of the stats I saw that was super interesting was what Tree Living, the assets that Tree Living moved in and out in his first however many trades versus what Conroy did. And it was just really interesting because you can clearly see the difference between the rebuild and the retool. Whereas Conroy is actually like committing to it and shipping out his best players and getting a ton of picks back and getting a lot more assets back than he traded away. With Tree Living, it was very obvious he was just kind of ditching those and trying to get better as fast as he could. And while I think that hastened the process, there was still a lot of holes left on the roster. It's why they were never able to get over the hump.
I think it might have been
Conroy. He said he's trying to build through the draft, and I think that's going to really help him.
I think the other thing that In the Dome threw on there, I think I saw it from them, but that really, really adds on to that is how many first round picks Treliving had in his entire tenure. Because I think the Flames have more in the next 2 or 3 years than he had in his entire, I don't know if it was quite 10 years, but it was pretty close to 10-year run with the Flames, which is ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous what Conroy has already built. And I think you make a really good point there, because that actually makes me feel a lot better about it, thinking about it like that. I think what people are scared of is Conroy's going to get pressure from the ownership group and go, well, time to trade away all these firsts and go bring in like Tarasenko and like Patrick Kane and make a run at it.
I think if that pressure was there, I think it would have already been there, and these moves would have never happened. Because
that's a good point.
Like some of them, I don't think you could have prevented. Like I think with how badly you screwed up Markstrom, maybe you're not able to prevent this. But a lot of them, I think you could have been like, hey, Chris Tanev, come back. And it probably would have been able to get something done if they really wanted to. Hey, Elias Lindholm, come back. Hey, Noah Hanifin, come back. You know, like I think we would have seen them retain at least one or two of those guys if they were really gonna say like, okay, now let's try and beef up, or we're still good. You know, we still need to sell tickets. I do think the fact that Connor is being allowed to do this and pretty much gut the roster, because now this is all of the tradable pieces that we have are gone now pretty much. I think Markstrom was the last one.
Well,
and the fact that
I think
to get rid of
the one goofy thing I saw brought up is if you can trade Dubois, I wonder if you can trade Huberdeau, but yeah, probably not.
There's no way you can.
Yeah, it's not quite the same deal.
Tradable means tradable, not. Do you talk about pipe dream earlier?
Yeah, exactly, right. The one thing I will bring up, because I think this might have a little bit to do with it. I fully believe this. I wonder if the ownership group sort of noticed in this last season that fans weren't really coming to see the old guard of Markstrom or Lindholm or all of these guys, Huberdeau, Kadri. They were coming to the games for Zary at one point. They were coming to the games for Coronado. They were coming to the games especially for Dustin Wolf. Like every single time he was starting, the whole dome just lit up. And I wonder if that has any sort of impact. Like seeing how much I wonder if the ownership actually started to notice how much the fans are just done with the past group that didn't really get us very far. Like there's not much reason to want to cheer for these guys that are just going to get us to at best a first round exit, right? Throughout this season. Of course the fans are going to want to cheer for the guys that are showing you what the future could look like. And I mean I wonder if that had a bit of an impact. I hope it did, because if that is the case, I think that is sort of being reflected through the Conroy moves a little bit. Especially with the whole thing that you pointed out there. I mean, you're definitely right. The moves we've seen over the last year would not have happened if the ownership group wasn't completely behind it, but still. It is definitely a little bit worrying knowing what this team's pattern is a little bit, to try and almost self-destruct while trying to make themselves better. I don't want to see these like 6 or so first-round picks get turned into like I said, Tarasenko or something like that. That would be very sad.
Well, I think it was just about a lack of patience, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest thing. It's just the whether it was Tree Living or the ownership, or probably most likely a little bit of both. Somebody got impatient and said we need to win now, and like that does scare you, because the Flames are probably going to be not very good for the next at least 2 to 3 seasons, like because it's 6 first round picks in the next 3 years, so I think it's gonna be a while before those start actually panning out.
Like
if not longer. It's not going to be a good couple of years, and you start to wonder if the ticket numbers start to dwindle, the ownership maybe gets antsy, but who knows? I do think again, I think the fact that these moves have even happened at all is kind of a sign that we're past the point of no return, because I think if you were gonna, I just think it wouldn't have happened if they didn't. As much as you kind of like to dunk on owners as sports fans, they're not like stupid generally. They have to know that this is going to be a long process.
Yeah, you gotta hope.
You have to hope that
or you gotta hope that Craig Conroy is willing to die on his sword a little bit to let his plan go through, right? Because it pressure from ownership doesn't mean that he has to do anything. Pressure from ownership means that he might lose his job if he doesn't, right? And you gotta hope that whoever they bring in after Conroy, if they really do get sick of it, is willing to see it through, or at the very least, like you said, ownership is willing to let Conroy ride it out a little bit. Because the thought I have in my head immediately is, I can't remember his name. I think it was like Stan Van Gundy, one of the two. But in Philly, back when they were in their like tank phase of the 2010s, where he kept preaching, just trust the process. Give me more time. They got a bunch of first-round picks, and right before it all started to work out and Joel Embiid broke out, they fired him. But he was willing to die on his sword, and they didn't trade away Embiid or anything like that, and it sort of ended up working out for them. Not really, but sort of. they at least got their superstar out of it, right? Which I think a lot of people in Calgary would be pretty happy about if we could somehow manage to pull a first overall pick at some point in the next couple of years. So I think, at least to me, I really hope they end up pulling through with it, but it is tough. I do understand that it is tough because I think the ownership looks at contracts like Kadri, like Huberdeau, and goes like, there's still potential in those guys. We can pull them back. The Kadri of the 2021 season, Huberdeau, 70 assists. No,
I don't
not
know
really,
how
but
you can look at that.
I don't know.
I
either,
almost
but
think it's the opposite way because I bet they only gave Conroy the green light to do this because they saw how colossally bad these contracts are. Because
yeah,
I think you get into this spirit of saying like, oh, like we can still do this when you have years like the Flames would have where they
Yep.
would be terrible and then they would go first in the Western Conference. They'd still get out in the first round, but like there would be hope, right? And you'd be like, oh no, there's still hope. I think the Flames have been bad enough for long enough, and the Huberdeau didn't bounce back, and we haven't seen. Kadri obviously has been good at times, but
he's not the same
contract.
Yeah, he's not the same. Like Kadri,
Yeah.
we're paying him what,
Yeah.
$7 million?
I think
He's
you
probably a
look at
$5.5 million player.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you look at that, and then I think that's when you have to say, okay, yeah, there we go. That's kind of the nail in the coffin for this whole idea that we still have a little bit of hope in just trying to push through. It's time to hit the reset button because this didn't work.
Yeah, and the nice thing with this, with how it all might work out, we might have a good team by the time we actually get a new arena. That's kind of where my brain goes, which is exciting in a sense. It does suck a little bit to know that we might have seen the last of the playoffs in the Dome. I think that might be the most sad thing that I could possibly think of. But at the end of the day,
we go out by losing to the Oilers. Hey.
Oh fuck yeah!
That
is a bad way to do it. I there's no way. I think the Flames are gonna pull a first round like towards the end there. Like this, we are such a first round exit team almost constantly that I could never see us getting a first overall pick. I can't see us getting a top 5. It's such a weird thought in my head. It is possible now considering we're so like ripped to pieces at this point. Like we've sold everything for parts and the team is a lot younger, but I don't know. I still don't think we're quite top 5 bad, at least in my opinion when I look at the roster. We're certainly, there's potential to be top 5 bad. Like if Dustin Wolf flops and like Vladar isn't ready for the pressure, if he ends up having to step in as the starter. Like there's a lot of things that could go wrong. It just doesn't feel like they will, which for the Flames, it almost feels like that might not be a good thing. It almost would be better if he sucked bad enough and could get oh crap, what's his name again? What's the guy who's gonna go first overall next year? You don't got a clue?
Don't ask me. I haven't looked past this year's draft.
Yeah, fair enough. I barely looked at this year's draft. Whatever. It doesn't matter that much. But yeah, go ahead.
The one thing I would say to what you just said in terms of like the Flames not being a top 5, I think they can be. I think the best case scenario, because you talk about like, oh, if Wolf flops, well, I think then you're really hooped because then your young players are not performing well. You're not just gonna build a team with the 6 players you bring in from the first round pick. You have to continue to build based on the young prospects that you already have. I think the best case scenario is that guys like who are still on the roster, who are the veterans like Kadri, continue to not play well, and that continues to drag you down. But it's the young players that show promise, almost just a continuation of last season. Like I think that's kind of what you have to see.
Can I tell you something that'll make you feel very happy? So very prestigious NHL website called Lines.com, which I'm sure you've heard of, by the way. Trust me, you've heard of them. Don't worry about it. They released their 2025 NHL mock draft. And they have the Flames getting the number 3 and number 8 pick. So it's going to happen.
From who?
The number 8 pick.
Like which pick was that?
That's a great question. The number 8 pick. Oh, I completely Wait. From Montreal? What? What?
Maybe this mock draft has them making trades. Because what?
No, that's from.
This is hold the phone.
Am I looking at like something completely? Oh, is it Florida's? It might be Florida's. Isn't that what it is? Yeah, it's Florida's. So they have Florida sucking. That's their prediction.
What? They're in the Stanley Cup Finals, and
I know that is the crazy thing. That is quite the Lines.com.
Lines.com
is throwing some wild shit in there. Huh.
Yeah.
Is that from first round? Yeah, it's the Florida pick. That is the one that they have there. So they are assuming Florida sucks next year. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Your massive NHL prediction straight from Lines.com, who we are not affiliated with in any way, shape, or form.
Jeez.
I just felt like sharing that because I pulled up this mock. I pulled up this mock draft just to see who was going number one. Whose name is James Haggins, by the way, who I can't say I've heard of. So NHL prospects dummy over here. But yeah, I saw the Flames sitting at 3-8, and I was like, oh, it's pretty good. I ain't gonna complain about that. If we get 3-8, are you kidding me? Caleb, don't break my heart.
It's not gonna happen. Don't.
I can get my hopes up.
I'm gonna have to let you down easy.
Darn.
No.
Darn.
Before we move on from this segment, I do kind of want to talk about it from the Devils side.
Maybe
obviously
a good
Flames
idea.
fans talk about it from the Flames perspective. We could do that for hours probably, but I do think that Devils fans, I think you have to be worried a little bit on the pattern that we've seen from Markstrom, the whole 1 season on, 1 season off thing, but also this is such a good deal for them. I think just because
there's almost no
Flames
downside.
fans were a little bit underwhelmed. It wasn't that much that they had to give up, and you're getting a solution to what was your biggest issue last year. And Markstrom, if he plays the same as he did last year, you're getting a goalie who's one of the better goalies in the league, and it provides so much more security for all the young players that you have in your team. Like, there's a reason that the Devils were so openly pursuing a goalie, and they got probably the best one available. Because you look at all the other free agents and people who could be available to trade, maybe Allmark, you could argue, but other than that, Markstrom was the best guy available, and they got him. And for a team like the Devils, who we had so much hope for last year, I think this kind of does a lot to renew that hope.
My question, I'm going to immediately toss it right back over to you here. Do you think Markstrom makes the Devils one of the best teams in the NHL? Because that is the one thing I'm hearing. There are people who are so excited about the Devils finally getting a goalie that they are basically going, oh, well, hand them the cup. They got it. I've actually seen that online. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far because I think you have to... I think if we've seen anything from this year, it's that you need a lot more, and you need a lot deeper of a team, and you need a lot more experienced of a team. Like, the Devils are a very young, exciting team, and I think with Markstrom, they will improve a lot from last year. I think the window's going to be tight. I think that they do become a playoff team in my eyes. I think that's going to be the biggest thing, is that they will return to the playoffs, I believe. And I could see them winning a round, maybe even a couple, but I think saying they're immediately one of the best teams in the NHL, especially coming out of that Eastern Conference, I could just see them run into a Florida or a New York, or
they are in the same division
like Boston
as the Rangers and the Hurricanes, I believe. So that immediately just breaks that team. I honestly think there is some merit behind it if you just look at their skill. I mean, they are so insanely stacked, especially in the top 6, that I don't even necessarily hate that people have that opinion. I think that there is a lot of reason to be that excited, because the main reason that they struggled last season was because they just could not find good goaltending to save their lives. And quite literally was the reason they died. So there you go. Like, it was just not, there was no way they were ever going to win with the goaltending they were getting. And now they have that, it feels like they have that last puzzle piece a little bit, right? So I understand it a lot. I think you made a really good point, though. In the experience side of things, they don't have that. They really don't have that. I think when I go through this entire roster and look for guys with, like, real NHL playoffs experience, I think, like, Palat, he was part of, like, the Lightning's runs. Was Timo Meyer on the team when the Sharks went to the Cup final? I don't even remember. I don't think so. Like, it's not...
Maybe a little bit too late.
Yeah, I think he might have been a little bit too late. But, like, seriously, I think that's it. Because, I mean, again, this is another... Yeah, no, this one I think is definitely too late. But the only other one I think is Dougie Hamilton. Because I think he was too late for those Boston runs in, like, the mid 2010s. So I don't think that he was part of any of those. So that's pretty much it for playoff experience on this team, which is, like, the one knock you can absolutely toss at them. They haven't been there before. It's that type of thing. But we are seeing with this Oilers team this year, if you want an example of a team that doesn't necessarily have that much playoff experience but is still pushing through, it's I don't know. I'm really excited. I know it's going to be really funny when we get into our, like, preseason, like, predictions, and I predict the Devils to go stupid far,
and you predict them to win the Cup.
Yeah,
again.
and then they suck. Like, it's going to be really funny when that happens, but nonetheless, I'm excited. I think they do have a very good team. I think part of the reason we didn't talk about them right out of the jump is because there's almost not much to say about them. There's nothing that me or you could really say that's different than anybody has been said out in the internet currently. Because it's, even if you're not convinced they will be a world beater, they are still one of the best teams out there. Like, they're going to be hellish. Even if I don't necessarily think they're quite on the Canes or the Rangers or Florida's level, they could totally give them a tough fight. Which I think is half the exciting part, right? I don't even know if the expectation needs to be go win the Cup this year. I think it just needs to be show us something more than anything else. Let's see what you got a little bit.
Yeah. And the one last thing I would say about this for the Devils side is your window's tight. Is that they only have 2 years left on the deal. For Markstrom, and I believe by the time that deal is done, he'll be 36. So at that point, are you giving a contract extension to, because he's 34 now, so are you giving a contract extension to a 36-year-old goalie? And that's kind of the question, I think. I think at a certain point, you wonder whether that skill's going to fall off. And like we talked about, it's a very young team. And so I think you just have to hope that there's 1 year, maybe it's in the last year of his current contract or the first year of his probably final contract in the NHL, that everything just kind of links up. He's still playing to a high level, and the team, like, clicks everything together and finally has the experience and depth necessary to take them to a Cup final. Because I do think it is just kind of the thing where you look at it and say, this is a great move. It immediately helps their team, immediately addresses their biggest need. But I think everything kind of has to time up together. The window in terms of having a championship window open is very tight.
It's almost like you immediately start looking for his replacement, like, right now. Like, I honestly wouldn't hate if the Devils tried to draft a goalie pretty high here in the draft. I think that would be a pretty smart move.
I wouldn't be shocked, honestly.
Yeah, that would probably be pretty smart, especially with how long goalies take to develop. If you can have that goalie, probably not. I don't think you could possibly have him. But in some imaginary world where they get, like, the next superstar goalie, if you could have him playing behind at that point, probably 36-year-old Markstrom in, like, 3 years, that'd be a pretty good spot to be in, right? I think that kind of... You asked the question of whether I think that they should be looking to extend him in 2 years. It completely depends on how well he does. Like, I think if he even has one down here, you look to move on. If he has 2 really good years, I could see them signing him for, like, a, one more let's take a crack at it type deal. Like, it probably wouldn't be a lot of money, but I guess if they don't want him, I'm sure somebody else will. He'll probably. I could see a world where Markstrom bounces around the league for like the last 2 years if he wants to stick around a little bit after that. I could also see him just ride his pony out into the sunset, especially if they find a way to win in the next 2 years. But who knows?
Yeah,
It's
it'll
definitely
be
it's
really
not impossible.
interesting to see how that plays out.
It will. I
Yeah.
agree with you there.